Elias checked his chronometer, 02:14 a.m. The thermic charge tore through the reinforced steel. He braced for the brutal firefight that typically guarded the armory. But as the operatives poured into the sterile corridors, they found nothing. The notoriously violent enforcers assigned to the vault were entirely absent. Internal logs showed the guards had been rerouted to lower sublevels due to a sudden network failure a mere 3 minutes prior. Stripping away the emotional high, Elias viewed their rebellion through a purely logical lens. He analyzed the variables, the inputs, and the outputs. The math was fundamentally broken. There was no adrenaline anymore, just a disturbing, clinical execution of a script. The operation lacked all the markers of a triumphant insurgency. It was an engineered outcome. Elias realized they were experiencing the exact dread of a rat discovering its maze had been explicitly constructed to ensure it found the cheese. The Central Vault's intrusion countermeasures were legendary, designed to fry a hacker's nervous system. Elias inserted his decryptor drive, anticipating a war of attrition. Instead, the firewall folded immediately. The decryption keys sliced through the proprietary government mainframes with insulting ease. The heavy doors unsealed to reveal crates of untraceable military-grade ordnance and refined kinetic explosives. It was enough firepower to level a city block. A syndicate fighting from the underbelly does not bypass the armory undetected. Perfectly timed patrol shifts and flawlessly executed decryption keys cannot be bought or stolen. They have to be deliberately handed over. 2 floors down in the rust-scented safe house, the squad drank and celebrated the illusion of a flawless victory. Up in his office, Elias sat isolated in the blue glow of his terminal. Stripping away the emotional high of the heist, he dissected the raid's after-action data through a purely logical lens. This network graph maps the rebellion's supply lines. For months, untraceable crypto drops and operational routing numbers converged on a single benefactor, the Vanguard. Bypassing dummy nodes, Elias eliminated false flags until isolating a single shell corporation, Aegis Holdings. Running that corporation against the decrypted ministry databanks revealed a perfect match. Aegis Holdings was a subsidiary of a discretionary trust managed by the Directorate of Internal Security. The state itself was purchasing the adjacent buildings, tapping the power grids, and deliberately arming the very rebellion trying to destroy it. Elias tracked the Aegis Holdings server hierarchy to its terminal point. Knowing exactly who managed the trust, he routed a rendezvous request back through the same digital pipeline the state used to monitor the syndicate. Exactly 60 seconds later, the screen flickered to life, and Premier Silas Vane was waiting. In the ruthless game of statecraft, an absolute authority required an absolute threat to justify its existence. To maintain a rigid grip on a population that believes it wants freedom, a regime requires an absolute threat. This circular feedback loop illustrates epistocracy through terror. When rebels disrupt the grid, the masses panic, willingly looking to the government to restore order. This state mandate doubles defense budgets, which then secretly route back to arm the rebels. The Iron Path operatives genuinely believed they were dismantling a corrupt system. In reality, they were an expanding line item in the Premier's operational budget. The architecture of the war was a flawless, closed-loop cooperative game. The state weaponized the rebellion to build its own fortress, making the insurgents the foundational pillar of the capital's authority. Elias tested the perimeter of his cage. His only theoretical countermove was to broadcast the encrypted ledgers to the underground nets, exposing the financial ties and shattering the illusion of the war. This payoff matrix shows why that option fails. If Elias leaks the data, his men tear the syndicate apart in paranoia. If the public believes the leak, a power vacuum triggers catastrophic societal collapse. Both receive severe negative values. As the screen snapped black, a silent notification appeared on Elias's private terminal. A staggering deposit landed in an untraceable offshore account. The deposit lacked any operational routing data. It was a personal retainer. Elias had just been promoted to a highly paid, state-sponsored employee. It was a flawless equilibrium. Neither player can deviate from the current strategy without ensuring their own destruction. Vane designed a system where the incentives for cooperation are so overwhelming that the resistance becomes the state's most loyal guardian. Elias stood up in the cold air of his office. He deleted the trace from the local servers, scrubbed the decryption keys, and burned the connection logs, officially accepting his luxurious, state-backed immunity. Stepping out onto the catwalk, he looked down at his second-in-command hoisting a thermic charge. The lieutenant's eyes burned with the genuine, righteous fury of a man fighting for freedom. Elias possessed the absolute, cynical knowledge that it was all a necessary delusion. To master a game, you have to understand the board. Elias decided to survive the current turn, ordering his teams forward. He chose to play the exact monster the capital required, until a mathematical microfracture eventually appeared in Vane's design. Absolute state power doesn't rely on eradicating the enemy. It relies on a closed-loop dynamic where the threat is carefully managed and heavily armed. The villains are funded, the variables are locked, and the system is perfectly stable.